and live your life today. It doesn't matter what they say.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome to another episode of Red Lotus Life. This is where we provide resources and tools to create a life that you love after abuse. And today we are going to be talking about resilience, but we're going to be talking about the shadow of resilience and just bringing some awareness to that, because that is what we're working on in Say Yes to Soul right now. Say Yes to Soul is where we do our own work, and whoa, the awareness that is coming around that is amazing. So I'd like to introduce Sara Elizabeth Hoffman here. She is my beautiful co-host and co-creator here in this space of Red Lotus Life. So yeah, what are your thoughts about this?
My thoughts are like just mind blowing, right? Because, when we typically think of resilience, we think of it as a virtue. We think of it as, just having this capacity to be able to get back up and keep going. And it's literally the ability to keep going no matter what. But as we began to integrate and dive into resilience as the emotion that we cleared, what we found really quickly is that we're working with the shadow side of resilience. And so what does the shadow side of resilience actually look like? And for us, given the fact that not only ourselves, but so many of those that we are working with have experienced trauma in some shape, form, or fashion, we realize that resilience can be a shadow.
Yeah, it was pretty mind-blowing, just like what you said. It's really cool. I love the way that this work plays out. So we're spiral practitioners and we do emotional clearing. So when we saw that resilience was actually the emotional block, normally what that does in the work that we do is that someone may be needing to have more resilience, right? But in Say Yes to Soul, I mean, if you were called to be in Say Yes to Soul, you are somebody that, like, I've been through it. I've been through it. I am strong person. I have a strong spine. Like, I mean, really, it's not the victim part of things. We've moved into survivor, and like, we're here to do great. Like, we're here to do it, right? We're the people who you want at the scene of an emergency or something like that, because we're the ones that keep it together. We are the calm in the chaos. And so when that showed up for us as a group, resilience, I was confused at first until we realized, oh, no, 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 there is a shadow. There's a shadow side to resilience. And then that is actually what has been blocking all of us from really creating this life that we love.
Yeah. And, generally speaking, in the field, we know that there's that shadow side to resilience. We see it show up for us so many times, but just given that this particular clear, the emotion of resilience came up around trusting self and spiritual gifts, and that was the part that was so mind blowing. It was the relevance to the clear and the reasoning for clearing it. So, you know some of the ways that it can show up for us are literally emotional suppression. And I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
On the emotional suppression.
Mm-hmm.
So how it shows up for me, so it's been so fun. Like I said, this is where we do the work with everyone. We do our own personal work in the space of Say Yes to Soul. And whenever I saw that emotional suppression, how that shows up for me is when I don't have time to fall apart. Like,
Right.
like it's, I have to keep it together because everybody else or everything else is falling apart. And so it's more like, I'm just strong. I'm going to push through this type thing. And so, which was interesting for me because just like what you said, it is a virtue, right? It's a virtue.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really want to, like, the trusting self and also the spiritual gifts, it's like, now you have to have that time and space to feel and become and embody and feel the emotions that are coming up and move those emotions. We talk about it a lot. Energy or emotions are energy in motion. And so if we're constantly suppressing them on an unconscious level, how can we possibly expand spiritual gifts or receive the guidance? right? Receive the guidance around that if we're constantly doing and constantly keeping it together, because it's actually in the softness that we receive and we receive the guidance. So that's what it looked like for me.
Yeah, I love that. And another way that we can explain this is actually like enduring those emotions that are coming up without actually processing. So like we're looking at, when are we bottling up the pain? When are we bottling up our grief, our anger, just pressing it down and pressing it down to the point that we're actually depleting ourselves. We're not giving ourselves the self-care that we not only need, but we deserve. And then we can't be in our spiritual gifts and be able to trust ourselves to be able to give back to those that we would love to give back to.
Something that came up for me just now was also appropriateness. Like a lot of times I'll be like, oh, it's not appropriate for me, because if like I'm in a professional setting, or even with like my culture, I'm half Japanese, so the culture of the Japanese family, right, is like, oh, it's not appropriate right now. It's not appropriate for any of these things. Nobody can see you break type thing. So yeah, very, very interesting, right? Of how that can actually block expansion.
It is really interesting. So I just wanted to give a few examples really quick before we move on to the next way that this can show up. Is it looks like I don't have time to fall apart, and that can lead to, just like you just said, it's not appropriate, but that leads to actually numbness and disconnections from our emotions, our delayed trauma responses, and then the inability to ask for or receive help. So
Yep. It's that whole, I can do it all by myself.
yep, I've got this.
What's another way I have over here? Over-identification with suffering. So yeah, share a little more about or do you feel comfortable sharing more about how you experienced that part?
Yeah, so basically, this looks like someone that's clinging to their survival or survivor identity. And, I don't resonate with this one so much, because when I'm when I'm in resilience, right, then I was that person who pressed down the fact that I was in survival mode, or that I was a survivor, words match here, period. Like, I didn't want to be victim, right? I wouldn't admit to the fact that, yes, there was trauma. Yes, I was a victim. So for me, I really related to the first one around emotional suppression the most. But what I did resonate with was always feeling like I needed to be overcoming something, because my self-worth was tied to that resilience, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, that's how I identified with it as well. It wasn't the victim part of things.
Right.
In fact, I didn't even realize I was in a lot of these relationships, had zero clue I was in these relationships. So for me, it was that whole, like, I got this again, right? It's like, I got this. I'm strong. I'm a survivor. I've gone through the storms. So it was that part of over identifying with suffering in that way, which again, like, not being open to help, right?
Yeah, exactly. One of the things that that really showed up for me was I totally just forgot what I was going to say as you were sharing.
Well, it's okay if I share something and if it comes back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So one of the things that this can look like for others that are watching this is that, like, when I was going through my divorce, I didn't even think to reach out. I didn't think to look at options or possibilities or anything like that. Because when we are in abusive relationships, a lot of times that isolation and everything else plays out. And so whenever I was actually going through the process of ending the relationship, I didn't even think about like attorneys. I didn't think about asking family for help. I didn't think about asking friends for, I didn't think about any of it. And it wasn't even about the shame of anything. It was more of just, it wasn't even in my awareness at all. It was just like, okay, cool. This is what's happening. And now I'm going to just move forward with this, so that's some of the ways that it can look like with the over-identifying with suffering.
Yeah, absolutely. And now it has come back to me what I was going to share. So basically, what it looks like is when we're in the shadow side of resilience, and we aren't wanting to identify with the victim, that really actually keeps us from progressing in our healing journey. And so, for me and for others that I know of, actually coming to the place where you're able to say, yeah, I was a victim. So now I get to heal this, and now I get to move forward. And we're not identifying any longer with that victim mentality.
Yeah, I like that. I have a whole story around that, but we don't have time. Another time. It's on the website if anybody wants to go check it out.
Yeah. So just moving on a little bit, basically with this shadow, we're looking at, if I'm not struggling, then who am I actually? And this can manifest and look like the subconscious attraction to hardship or chaos. So we're always kind of leaning into the chaos. And then difficulty relaxing or trusting with ease. And then glorifying suffering as a badge of honor.
Yep. All sounds about right. It was interesting when we were working through this with Say Yes to Soul when it first came into our awareness about the shadow of resilience. The members of Say Yes to Soul were kind of like, check, check, check,
Right.
as we go through it. Yeah. So what else? What else do you have there?
Well, I think just moving on to the third way that we have identified that can be the shadow side of resilience is just perpetual self-reliance. And this often comes with the hyper independence that we all know so well, and never wanting to be vulnerable or dependent on others. So the shadow pattern kind of looks like, I've got this and I don't need anyone else. And this kind of leads to isolation, it leads to that burnout that we were talking about, being depleted, and also strained relationships due to the lack of reciprocity. So we're over giving, 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 and actually people get used to that. And then we're in this place where energetically there's no exchange, and that does deplete us.
Mhm. Yeah, had a lot of experience with all of that.
Yes.
And even if you're career oriented, that burnout, right? Like I experienced that. That was the one thing that I went, wow, yeah, I can even see this flowing over into work. So,
Yeah. And that's even like when our martyr can come out.
Yep.
So the next way that resilience can be a shadow is actually the avoidance of transformation. So true transformation does often require the breaking down before the rebuilding, right? So the shadow of resilience resists the breaking down, clinging to survival rather than surrendering to growth. The shadow pattern of this might look like, I'll just power through it. This results in stagnation and resulting in actually avoiding the deeper work and then mistaking endurance for healing.
I think this is the one that a lot of, I would say most of the people in Say Yes to Soul right now identified with right away. And like the most mind-blowing part, let me put it that way. So this was the part that was so unconscious of how this was actually affecting our spiritual growth. It was affecting and blocking and limiting our healing by being in this avoidance. It's also spiritual bypassing too.
It is.
Mhm.
It is. And, you know, by avoiding anything that is going to feel hard or uncomfortable, we're definitely bypassing our transformation and our potential to be able to grow and actually create not only the lives that we love, but to reach the levels of success those things that we're desiring to obtain in life, generally speaking.
Something that I wanted to speak to you real quick here was a question to ask yourself for anyone that's watching or listening is, where am I not all in? Because I think that was the one thing too, is where a lot of us could see where we had one foot out and one foot in because we were always looking for the out, not even realizing we were looking for the out, right? In anything. So, yeah, just realizing like that was huge. That was a huge mind-blowing shift.
Yeah, absolutely. It absolutely was. And I think that's a really good segue to the fifth way that we've identified, which is enabling dysfunction. Um, so resilience can enable toxic systems or relationships by actually enduring too much for too long. And this can show up not only in relationships, but even within dynamics that might be in work relationships and different ways like that. So we're always saying, I can take it, I can do it, I can endure more. And it looks like actually staying in abusive environments and abusive, toxic relationships and situations, enabling others' bad behavior. Because we're so resilient, we can handle it, we've got this, we think we can change them, right? And we can't, so that's not our job. And then again, confusing martyrdom with strength.
Mm-hmm. I think my biggest thing with this one here, um, I I really understand people. Like I love to, I'm very much someone who's in my mental body a lot. So I'm in my head a lot. I like to really think things through. I like to be able to observe and to see things and really understand them. Because once I'm able to understand something, then I have that clarity of mind. And then now I can make a decision. And
Mm-hmm.
so I will slow down that whole thing. And for me, how that showed up was because I understand it, I'm still there, right? I'm still, and it doesn't matter the situation. It could be, it doesn't matter the relationship. Like this can be our, abusive relationships and environments, but it also extends out even into workplaces or family dynamics or anything like that. And so for me, because I could understand it and I would have empathy and compassion for what
Mm-hmm.
was happening, that is why I would end up staying too long instead of really just, and then that's a whole self-sacrifice and martyrdom and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and that kind of takes us back full circle to the suppression of how we're actually feeling, because you do understand we're now suppressing our grief or our sadness or our um, what was the word that I was going to say? Yes, we are in the middle of integration of this clear. We can tell. So thank you for bearing with us. But even our anger and anything that comes with just feelings of dissatisfaction with the situation actually is what I'm trying to get to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then that goes into, it could easily go into like a shame spiral or a guilt spiral or anything like that, especially if you are in these abusive environments or unhealthy and toxic environments, that can happen real quick,
Mm-hmm.
with the gaslighting and everything else that we've talked about in the past. So yeah, this shadow of resilience has been really cool to journey with and really cool to integrate because we're all a bunch of badasses in that space. Like we're all very strong people, right? We're strong people with strong souls. And so for us to go, oh, wow. So this is the shadow of resilience. And also how attached I think most of us were to the idea of it being a virtue, right? Because it really is usually seen as a virtue.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been so good.
It has been good. And what I'll say, just to attest to sort of the work that I'm doing personally with this shadow is that I feel distinctly different in my nervous system as far as feeling more regulated and operating more from here and now rather than from that shadow of resilience. It feels really good, really calm, really just more in alignment.
Yeah, so that's something else too. I'm glad that you're bringing that up because resilience with the work that we do in the spiral is in the triple warmer. We could talk about that in a totally different episode. But not realizing for me that this was another form of dissociation.
Yes.
And so for me being more present and in my body, my nervous system is also a lot calmer and had no idea that I was dissociating in that way.
Yeah, it was a big eye opener. Like that 11-year-old was really running the show in a very unconscious way.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to talk more about this in other episodes because we are journeying with this until, let's see, what is today? It's August 1st today. Didn't even realize that. So at the time of recording, it's August 1st. We're going to be journeying with it for another month to the end of August. So if this interests anyone, we definitely would love for you to join us. We have it as low as $19 a month to actually go through and do this work with us. And it's amazing. It's such an amazing space to be in with people who understand, right?
It is. And when we are in a container that is creating so much safety, it's such a beautiful place to be able to integrate. And we will be integrating the shadow side of resilience for the entire next month. So we really have loved this process of kind of slowing down and really taking the time to embody and expand.
Yes. So thank you so much for joining us today. We are so grateful that you've been able to spend this time. If you like this, go ahead and like it so that we know, or drop a comment if this is something that you're interested in or you've been journeying with the shadow of resilience. We'd love to hear your story and your experience of how you've been working with it. And then subscribe because we're going to be coming back with more information on the work that we're doing and Say Yes to Soul on how we're integrating and implementing it into our lives. So yes, please come and join us. We'll have all the information down in the bottom and the description here. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Bye.
And live your life today.